So today we'll be talking about Jupiter and Taurus through each of the houses and what this placement means for you if you have it in your chart. With that being said, what does Jupiter represent? Jupiter rules the ninth house and it represents wisdom, knowledge, fortune, and faith. Those are just a few key words. And so wherever your Jupiter placement is showing the energy of abundance or good fortune in your chart. It is also an area of life where you have a lot of wisdom or knowledge, and it's one of the things that you're capable of teaching to others, even. So, with that being said, Jupiter in your chart is in Taurus. Taurus is the sign of finances, it's the sign of practical matters and material things. It's an earth sign. Earth signs are about the physical realm and is ruled by Venus. Venus is about material things, value, and beauty. It's also about self worth. And Taurus is a big sign that represents self worth, self esteem, self care. Um, so, when you have Jupiter in Taurus, one of the general things that it represents is abundance. So, whichever house where you have Jupiter and Taurus will show a house that experiences an abundance of resources or an abundance mindset. Because Taurus as a sign is quite self reliant and content, it's high in esteem. It is a sign that is also about pleasure. So, having Jupiter in Taurus can make one prone to chasing not chasing pleasure, but overindulging in pleasure. Sometimes it can be chasing, but in general, they have an abundance mindset, and Jupiter gives kind of the most fortunate expression when it's in Taurus. You know, when people think of fortune or when they look for fortune in their charts, they're usually looking for this kind of a placement. They are looking for big wealth. They're looking for a jackpot. And by having Jupiter in Taurus, you're one of the lucky people that has a jackpot type of placement, I would say. Because again, Taurus is a earthly sign. It's about material things. So there's no clear indication of fortune in a chart. Now, the earth is also about growing things. It's about growth, fertility. So this is why I say abundance as well. Abundance can be another way of explaining the energy. So now let's talk about a few people that have this placement and then what this placement would mean through each of the houses. So check which house you have Jupiter and Taurus in, and you can click on one of the time stamps or tap on one of them in the description to take you to your placement. Martin Luther King Jr. has Jupiter and Taurus in his 12th house, and the 12th house is about dreams. So this is showing somebody that had dreams of abundance. His most famous quoted speech started with or had the words, "I have a dream" in it. And Jupiter is about teaching or preaching. So it's a very powerful placement. Uh, Vladimir Putin has Jupiter in Taurus in his 7th house. Keanu Reeves, the actor, has this placement, Jupiter in Taurus, in his 9th house. Shakira, the singer and dancer, has this placement in her 2nd house. Mahatma Gandhi had this placement. So again, great teachers have had Jupiter and Taurus. And the reason why this might happen or might be the case is because Taurus is about practical ways of teaching. It's about undeniable truth or undeniable facts. So when Jupiter and Taurus speak, like people listen to them and listen to their wisdom because it's so undeniable and it's so, relatable and practical. And Jupiter gives this energy of inspiration wherever it's at, and like motivation. Or whenever have you ever had like a a inspiration high from getting from reading a book or from watching a motivational speech? That's kind of the energy of Jupiter. And Taurus Jupiter does it in a very practical manner and gives very good advice. So John Lennon had Jupiter in Taurus. John F. Kennedy, another great speaker, had Jupiter in Taurus. Adele, the singer, has Jupiter in Taurus. Now, what's interesting is about Taurus rules the vocal cords. It rules the mouth. It rules singing. So, of course, she has an expansive voice. Jupiter is expansive, and she has a fortunate, talent when it comes to singing. And that's the one thing that I forgot to mention as well of Jupiter and Taurus, is that those that have this placement will just have an abundance of talents. They will be multi-talented. Why is that? Well, it's because Taurus represents talents in the chart. The second house represents talents, because talents are things that give us worth. Is what sets you apart from the average person or the another random person. So next, Bruce Lee had this placement. Robert Downey Jr. has this placement, another talented person. Audrey Hepburn has this placement. Sandra Bullock has this placement. Ryan Reynolds. And Pablo Picasso has this placement in his 10th house. Again, Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus is about aesthetics. So there was aesthetic talent with Picasso. Bob Dylan has this placement, another artist. Vanessa Hudgens. And a lot more people that I have not listed, but those are a few. So now let's talk about what this placement means through each of the houses, starting with the first house. When Jupiter is in Taurus in your first house, this bestows an abundance mindset. This is somebody that is optimistic. They could have a good sense of humor, because Jupiter brings humor to the personality when it's in the first house. And generally speaking, these people don't worry about resources when it comes to their decision making. In fact, they are more constructive than pessimistic when it comes to the thought of resources or the use of resources. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is, for a lot of people, when thinking about money and resources, they have a conservative attitude. And they might even have a fearful attitude or a frugal attitude. And so they miss out on all the opportunities or possibilities of what they could do with that wealth in order to make more, or in order to experience a better lifestyle. And so those that have Jupiter and Taurus in the first house, they don't have fears around money, but they're rather optimistic about finances. And they can also be financial risk takers. Jupiter is about risk and faith. And so they can have a spendy attitude, or like an impulsive spending habit that comes up every once in a while. They like to solve problems quickly by purchasing the solution. So with that being said, now we're going to talk about Jupiter and Taurus in the second house. So this is a double Taurian energy, because the second house is the house associated with Taurus, and it's the house of our personal finances. Taurus is about finance in general, and the second house is about our possessions and our finances. For one, Jupiter in the second house will either have a lot of random possessions or just a lot of stuff, or they will be very detached from things. It's either one or the other, but there's an energy of extremes. The reason why they could be detached is because Jupiter is about spirituality, enlightenment, and letting go of things. It's about detachment. So, in general, these are very generous individuals, because something I forgot to mention is that Jupiter and Taurus will show people that are generous, But in the second house, this is showing somebody that's financially generous of their own possessions. The other thing is that the energy of abundance is being attracted to your personal finances when you have Jupiter in your second house. So these individuals make money quickly or make money in a stroke of good luck at some point in their lives. And that's a good way to explain it. Furthermore, they could have a lot of wisdom on personal finances or a lot of knowledge about personal finances. With that being said, this leads us to Jupiter and Taurus in the third house. When Jupiter is in the third house, it gives somebody a philosophical mindset. And when Jupiter is in Taurus, it shows somebody that's grounded and sees things very clearly and practically. And so these are wonderful communicators, for one, and wonderful teachers and wordsmiths. They can have an artistic gift with putting together words. And just generally speaking, they just have this philosophical but grounded mindset that is appealing to others to listen to. Like, people feel inspired or practically guided in practical ways by this person when they speak. And also, this person just has a lot of thoughts that has Jupiter in Taurus in the third house. Jupiter expands things in the third house is about thoughts, and it's about opinions, and it's about the mind. So these can be strongly opinionated people, but not in an offensive manner, because Taurus grounds the energy of Jupiter. So their opinions actually become universal and just very grounded or practical. It's like they're strongly opinionated, but their opinions are like undeniable truths. And so these just make very great and prominent teachers. So next, this takes us to Jupiter and Taurus in the fourth house. The fourth house is about roots, security, home. It also represents things we hold on to, especially from an emotional standpoint, an emotional frame of mind, because Taurus shows our possessions and things that have value that we hold on to. But like the fourth house would show like things that have a nostalgic significance, and things such as memorabilia or family antiques, family photos, all those kind of things. And at the end of the day, it's a water house. It's about emotions. So the fourth house can accumulate a lot of things, but it's like things that have an emotional significance. Anyway, with that being said, when you have Jupiter in the fourth house, this will show having a large home or an expansive home. Jupiter is in Taurus, so there's this energy of abundance when it comes to your family lineage. You may come from wealth when you have Jupiter and Taurus in the house of your roots. And generally speaking, you will accumulate a lot of wealth in your investments. The fourth house is about growth. So these individuals experience the energy of abundance through growth, patience, investments, like investing time and energy towards a goal or towards security. And eventually the results tend to outweigh the amount of work that they had to put in, and they experience a stroke of financial grace. With that being said, now we're going to talk about Jupiter and Taurus in the fifth house. The fifth house is expressive. The fifth house is creative. The fifth house wants to share things with the world. So also, fifth house is very giving. So this is perhaps the most generous Jupiter and Taurus placement, because they just want to give to others, and usually they will give in material ways or financial ways as well, because Jupiter is in a sign of finances. Secondly, Jupiter is showing talents when it's in Taurus, and the fifth house is about performing, or is about being creative. So they can have creative talents, and they like to share their art with the world, or their music, or whatever it is that they are creating. And this actually brings them fortune or abundance, because Jupiter is the area of one's chart that will bring them fortune. So when you share your creative gifts with the world, This will lead to unexpected forms of fortune. Jupiter is not such an analytical or calculated result as would be Mercury or Saturn. So the type of results that you get tend to be unexpected and tend to be fortunate. Like it's like the energy of somebody that is vulnerable and shares their creations with the world, and then they might unexpectedly go viral or unexpectedly gain a following that gives them a reason to continue doing what they love doing, and to even get rewarded for it. And keep in mind that at the beginning they might not have even been thinking about a reward. So that's the type of energy Jupiter and Taurus will give. um, Jupiter in the fifth house can bestow charisma, and it does help with public speaking, and it does help with presenting because Jupiter represents humor, and it just is very expansive. And the fifth house is about our energy or our character. So these people have an abundant energy. They could have more of a quiet charisma, and it's not necessarily that all of them will have a quiet charisma about them. It's just that their self-esteem speaks volumes, and when they speak with a lot of authority, or like of a lot of value. So anyway, that's when Jupiter is in the fifth house in Taurus. Next, let's talk about Jupiter in Taurus in the sixth house. This placement indicates somebody with an abundance of practical knowledge and practical skills. They may know a lot of factual or statistical information. They may know a lot about the health fields and about natural remedies, or not so much just remedies, but like natural phenomena and diets, anything related to the earth and to topics that are representing green things. Um, so, like eating green, living a more green lifestyle, all those kind of things. Because Taurus is an earth sign, and it represents growth. And the sixth house is about information, statistics, analysis, and is very practical and realistic. So having Jupiter in the sixth house will also somebody that has very practical or scientific beliefs, or like have like analytical beliefs where there's an explanation or where there's evidence. The key word I would say is evidence. They have evidence based beliefs, and this makes their opinions and their communication more grounded and effective. So these can be great teachers because like their opinions are backed by evidence, and it just makes what they have to say more appealing, I would say. That's not the exact word I was trying to find, but it's like it makes what they have to say more easily received. So this is why they can be good teachers. But the other thing is in the sixth house. This is about health, and we talked about how it can give knowledge about health. But Jupiter in Taurus is about abundance, and the sixth house is about habits. It's about our routine, and it's about work. So these people will experience abundance and good fortune when they stay consistent on a goal over a long period of time, and eventually the payout becomes enormous. Like the the fruits of their labor come in unexpectedly, or they just grow exponentially. And all these people have to do is find their life's work and like commit to it, and commit to showing up consistently and performing consistently. There's definitely a lot more meanings to Jupiter and Taurus in the sixth house. Um, but for the sake of time, we're going to move on to the next house, and you know, book a reading with me, and we'll take a look at what it means in the specific context of your chart, and of course the other meanings, if that interests you. And anyway, this leads us to Jupiter in Taurus in the seventh house. The seventh house is about other people, it's about relationships and how we relate to others. So, those that have Jupiter in Taurus in the seventh house have an abundance mindset when it comes to other people and what they can get from others, and also how they relate to other people. So these people see others as a source of abundance and good fortune. So they have an optimistic social mindset, and they're very business savvy as well. And people are very generous to these people. Like, people will literally give them things. This is what Jupiter shows when it's in the seventh house and when it's in Taurus. Like, these people will receive enormous gifts. And this is an unusual thing because most people won't experience the type of gifts that these people get, or like the context in which they get these gifts. You know, like, not many people have the context in their lives to receive like a free car from like a friend or something. But this type of person that has this placement will experience those types of situations or similar type things where people just give them, random big things. The other thing about these people is that they can be generous with others as well. That could be kind of their relationship style. And obviously this creates positive karma, and people want to reciprocate too. And this is what could lead them to receive things from other people. And then also, they have no problem asking for things from others. Jupiter is about taking a risk, and Taurus is about material things, and the seventh house is about bargains, or it's like uh proposing something to an equal, or like seeing eye to eye with somebody. So these people will strike deals with other people, or they just they take a risk socially, and it's having to do with material things. So a lot of times it shows somebody that gets things from others, or like asks for people's help. But a lot of times even Jupiter will manifest by itself. So it's like, even without them asking, or even with them being independent, people just give them things. So next, this leads us to Jupiter in Taurus in the eighth house. This has similar energy to Jupiter Taurus in the seventh house, in the sense that people will give you a lot of things. However, in the eighth house, you're more prone to like asking for things. The eighth house is about taking things. It's ruled by Mars. Mars is assertive and aggressive. Um, and so those that have Jupiter in the eighth house, like, for one, um, they can share a lot of resources with other people, or have access to other people's things or finances through the context of relationships, or just life scenarios, like business scenarios, or um, home scenarios, or like investments, like managing people's money and stuff like this. And this provides them a lot of abundance. And the other thing is that the eighth house can represent debt. So the negative thing about Jupiter in the eighth house is that it can accumulate a lot of debt, or it can create a lot of debt. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system, and it is an expansive type of energy when it's in the chart. So that's the downside to that. The eighth house is also about desire and motivation. So these people will be highly financially motivated. Sometimes they can struggle with greed or overindulgence, especially in pleasure and sex, because the eighth house is about sexuality. With that being said, this leads us to Jupiter in Taurus in the ninth house. And just like we carried over some meanings from the seventh house to the eighth house, Jupiter in the ninth house in Taurus carries over one of the meanings of the eighth house, which is overindulgence. Sometimes these people can be too much in the energy of pleasure, or the search of pleasure. Taurus is ruled by Venus and is the sign of pleasure. So your fortune and your abundance takes the form of pleasant experiences, or pleasurable experiences. The ninth house is also about travel. So these people spend extravagantly on travel or on trips. And it's like, whenever you're abroad, you lose your sense of proportion financially. That's definitely a meaning, because Jupiter in Taurus is very abundant in his mindset and very carefree when it comes to finances. And, that's already a normal thing for them. So when Jupiter's in the ninth house, it shows it gets even more extreme when they're like away from home, because now they have no self restraint. Now, the other thing about Jupiter in the ninth house is it represents knowledge. The ninth house represents knowledge. Um, so these individuals would just know a lot of information, especially about finances, business, and practical matters. They're great advice givers, um, and they just give advice from a practical standpoint, especially if they have the ascendant in Virgo. Virgo is analytical and precise. So whenever they say things, it's coming from a grounded place and it's constructive criticism for the most part. And anyway, this is what makes Jupiter in the ninth house in Taurus such great teachers. There's a lot of places where Jupiter and Taurus seem to make great teachers, and one of them was the third house, because the third house is about communication. The other was the sixth house, because the sixth house is ruled by Mercury, which is about communication. And now the ninth house is perhaps the greatest of them all in terms of knowledge, because the ninth house is about teaching, but it's like the home of Jupiter. And the ninth house is a mutable house, and mutable is about variety. So these people just have a variety of knowledge. Um, so that's how I would really summarize it. And they just have this great abundance mindset, and the fortune that they'll experience in life is just a lot of expansion when it comes to their resources. The ninth house is the energy of expansion. However, they can be scattered with their expenditures, and they can spend it extravagantly. So next, this takes us to Jupiter in Taurus in the 10th house. So a lot of great artists have Jupiter in Taurus, and one of the greatest artists in terms of notoriety, Pablo Picasso, has this placement of Jupiter in Taurus in the 10th house. The 10th house is about our reputation, and it's about how we are known. Jupiter is about expansion, abundance, and fortune. So when it's in the 10th house, it can create fame. And Taurus is about aesthetics, it's about value, it's about finances. So it can create fame for one of those reasons. It can create artistic fame, or like creative fame, such as with Pablo Picasso. It can create financial fame, such as Bernie Madoff. Now, he had a negative reputation, because I'll tell you why. He had the South Node in Taurus conjunct to Venus in his 10th house. The South Node is about loss. So, his story, which was that of a Ponzi scheme. He had the biggest Ponzi scheme in world history, in the terms of like financial amount of money that was involved, and that he got people to invest. And basically, he had a fall from grace. His scheme was exposed. He didn't really have the money that people were investing with him, supposedly. And so this is the story of Bernie Madoff. And so the thing, though, is that he had Jupiter in Taurus in his 10th house or his ninth house, but it was like very close to this placement, I think. And the thing, though, is he had the South Node in the 10th house and in Taurus. So this is representing losing financial reputation, the great loss of a reputation, and the need to detach and have spiritual uh, introspection, you know, from losing everything. So anyway, for many years he lived like an extravagant lifestyle, and then he lost it all. So anyway, when you have Jupiter and Taurus in the 10th house, this is why I say it is one of those placements that can give fame for a financial reason, or from a financial field, banking, trading, investing, etc., or being a content creator about those topics, or being somebody that gives practical advice, like somebody that teaches people how to save. I don't know if this person has this placement, but somebody that comes to mind that mirrors this energy would be somebody like Dave Ramsey. Jupiter, this is about gurus, knowledge, teaching. Taurus, this is about finances. Now, the other thing that I would mention is that Taurus is about self-worth and self-esteem. It's about value. So these people can also teach about feminine topics, or they can teach about, how to increase one's worth or one's value, how to love oneself. Um, but overall, how would, summarize Jupiter and Taurus in the 10th house is Jupiter bestows a favorable reputation, and it will create a lot of financial gain from one's success or from one's image. Um, and it could come from also social media, because the 10th house rules social media. And Jupiter is showing that it will come quickly or as a stroke of good luck at some point. And anyway, this is one of the biggest financially rewarding placements ever, because the 10th house is about business. So, I mean, if you think about the characters that I mentioned in the examples of this placement, like these were very, very wealthy people. So I believe Pablo Picasso was also very wealthy. Now, anyway, next this leads us to Jupiter in Taurus in the 11th house. The 11th house is about technology, innovation, progress, and the internet. So these people will make a lot of money from the internet, perhaps in a stroke of good luck. Now, a lot of people that have this placement, mark my words, have made a lot of money from cryptocurrencies or will make a lot of money from cryptocurrencies. Why do I say that? Well, because this combination of the 11th house and Taurus is the combination of technology and finances. So like digital technology. And, Jupiter can be about investing or, making a fortune from stuff like this. Um, these people are forward thinkers, they're pioneers. They take leaps of faith in the direction of progress. And also, they would be entrepreneurs naturally, or they just have a lot of inspiration to, become their own boss. Why is that? Well, that's because Jupiter rules inspiration. It rules epiphanies, motivation, and it rules guidance or direction. So these people are guided to create additional streams of income for themselves and to follow their personal interests, their hobbies, or their passions, and to monetize it. And Jupiter confirms that they will make a lot of wealth from this, either a lot of wealth or a lot of wisdom, self-esteem. Either way, though, it seems Jupiter is manifesting in a material manner. So there's a lot of worth that comes out from them pursuing their personal interests. The 11th house rules our individuality and the things that we participate in or the hobbies that we may have. So it shows the ability to monetize those things when you have such a fortunate placement there. Also, these people will be inventive and creative. Next, and finally, this leads us to Jupiter in Taurus in the 12th house. Martin Luther King Jr. is the most prominent figure that had this exact placement. And he had the speech, I have a dream. And, the 12th house is about dreams. Taurus is about making things relatable or practical, because it's ruled by Venus. And as the saying goes, for one, Taurus is ruled by money, or it rules money. And as the saying goes, money makes the world go round. So there's nobody on this planet that money wouldn't appeal to, or that money couldn't help. That's why Taurus is a relatable sign. It's ruled by Venus, the planet of relatability, which also rules Libra, which is the true sign of relatability. But anyways, this is why Jupiter and Taurus people can be such great teachers, because they teach in practical senses. So like practical knowledge or practical ways of getting to a point, things that we all know and agree upon. And that's what makes what they say so relatable. So anyway, the other thing is about vision. The 12th house is about vision. It's about the future. kind of like the 11th house, because it's about possibilities. It's about what's possible. So for one, those that have Jupiter and Taurus in the 12th house, they will have optimism and like an expansive imagination, expansive thoughts about what is possible. And these thoughts are actually what is creating a lot of abundance for them, because not everybody is blessed to have an optimistic outlook or to have such like realizations or epiphanies that these people have about potential and about the future and what's possible. That's literally the energy of Martin Luther King. Before segregation was abolished in the United States, it was unthinkable to think of blacks and whites as equals. So, you know, obviously, though, in his mind, he clearly saw a reality where all people are equal of all races. And he had the faith, Jupiter is about faith, to teach about those things. Furthermore, Jupiter is about teaching and preaching. So the other thing, Taurus is about finances. So these people will have large financial dreams. Martin Luther King was a very wealthy individual, and perhaps he's not the best example of this particular meaning, because he's more of the teacher or preacher type of manifestation. But he also, had financial abundance from Jupiter and Taurus. But anyways, like a lot of people that have Jupiter and Taurus in the 12th house, they will have great visions of financial potential, and this is what ends up manifesting great fortune from them. Because in order to manifest great fortune, you have to have that goal or that vision in the first place, in order to do it in the way that these people would do it. So anyway, that is Jupiter and Taurus in the 12th house and through all of the houses in this video. So I will see you guys in another post. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.